And you were listening to Season 6 of the award-winning Christian Outdoors Podcast with your host, Pete Rogers. All right, everyone, welcome back to Christian Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Rogers. Today we have with us Mr. Paul House and Miss Angie Gabe. Is that right, Angie?
It looks like Gady.
Gady, okay, close enough. You can correct me in just a minute. Well, Paul is one of the co-founders and executive director of what's known as the House in the Woods. It's a military and family retreat. Paul says that he grew up in a quiet rural town of Lee, Maine, a place where community, family, and faith and a love for the outdoors were central to everyday life. Alongside his wife, Dee, Paul raised their children in the same values, never imagining what journey would lay ahead. You see, their son, Sergeant Joel House, joined the U.S. Army and deployed to Iraq in 2006. And then on June 23rd, 2007, Joel was killed in action during a combat operation. The loss of Joel shattered their world and changed their lives forever. But in the darkest moments of grief, Paul and Dee felt a strong calling from God to turn their personal pain into a mission of purpose. From that calling came House in the Woods Military and Family Retreat. It's a nonprofit organization founded in Joel's memory, based in the very Maine woods where Joel and Paul once hunted, hiked together. The retreat was created to be a sanctuary, offering free year-round outdoor retreats to veterans, active duty service members, and Gold Star families. Because of Paul's strong faith, he knows that Joel is in heaven with the Lord, and he doesn't need to worry about him any longer. The House family directed their gratitude for the service and sacrifice of the military service members. They wanted to give back for our freedom. We believe that no one should carry the burden of war, grief, and trauma alone. Through the healing power of nature, fellowship with others, and their faith who share similar paths, the foundation was built on faith. House in the Woods gives our heroes a place to reconnect with themselves, with each other, and with the world around them. Everything from bear hunting trips to fly fishing trips to sturgeon spearing. I can't wait to hear about that. Turkey retreats and quiet mornings on the lake. Every moment spent on the lodge offers a chance to heal, to laugh again, and to remember and find peace. Paul continues to lead his mission with humility and an unwavering dedication, supported by an incredible team of volunteers, guides, donors, and veterans who now call House of the Woods home. This retreat is a place born from great loss, but built on even greater love. Together we heal is the motto of the House in the Woods, your home away from home. And I am honored to have you here on the show, Paul and Angie. Thank you for joining us here on Christian Outdoors.
Thank you.
All right. That's a great intro, Paul. A lot there. So why don't you, the bio kind of tells us how the House in the Woods came about, right? You had a tragic loss of your son who was serving over in Iraq, but tell us how that actually came into fruition, the idea of it. And you say there for what I just read in your bio that you felt a calling to do something this. How did that all happen?
Well, I'll start with my faith as a young boy, about 10 years old. I remember the Baptist church right there in our little town. Ironically enough, my mom was a Catholic, but she still sent us to the Baptist church, the only church in town. So I remember it was an evening service. The preacher gave the call to come forward, and that was when I accepted Christ as my Savior as a young boy. Okay. And I always trusted him for various things. And like any teenager, sometimes you wander a little bit, but you come back to your senses when you get a little older. But so our faith has been really strong growing up with our children, our kids. Always took them to church, Sunday school, that type of thing. My son, Joel, actually, he enlisted and went in 2003 when he first went over. So he loved the Lord himself. And the reason he went over was because when 9/11 happened, he told us, he was probably a sophomore, junior in high school. He says, I want to serve my country. I want to protect our country and our freedoms that we have in our faith. And that was his goal. That was his mission. Is like many other soldiers, he wanted to serve and do his part. And he had a strong faith, very quiet young man. So how House in the Woods came about, Joel, we lost Joel, as you had mentioned, 2007, June 23rd, on his mother's birthday. One of the things that Joel did prior to him losing his life was he always cared what was going on back home. And I recall one time that one of his classmates from high school wasn't doing well, sick, and he told her, contacted her and said, "I'm praying for you." He was always conscientious of other folks. Also, he said, "Dad, take some money out of my account." He put it in my name and his name, and he said, that he was trying to save. He says, "Take some money out and give it to the church." So his faith was with him no matter where he was. So anyway, that evening is about 5:30, June 23rd, 2007. Dee had gone to the coast with her mom, a good friend of hers, and her sister just for a getaway before her birthday. Came back June 23rd, which is her birthday, that afternoon, and she was downloading pictures that she had taken, wanted to show me. In the meantime, she's at the kitchen table. I went in the what we call the computer room and was looking for some paperwork. And the window that's in the computer room faces the driveway. Looking for paperwork, and I see a van pull up as I was looking out the window. Didn't see the plates. I said, "Well, somebody's coming to visit for a birthday." And as I was looking out, 20 or 30 seconds later, two men in uniform stepped out. And all I could say was, "Oh no." I knew the protocol. I had a heat sensation come over my body like I've never had, from my head to my toe. It felt like someone had reached in and ripped my heart out and just pulled it apart. So I proceeded into the kitchen, and I told Dee, I said, "The military's here and we have lost Joel." And she says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The military is here now. I see him come in and Joel's gone." Well, they knocked on the door. I let him in. There was two men. They stood at the head of the table. I went around where Dee was, and one of them, as he spoke, he said, asked her directly, "Is your name Deanna Arlene House?" She said, "Yes." "Is your son Joel Amos House?" She said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm sorry to inform you, your son was killed at 6 a.m. this morning." And I watched her as she lost it, which is understandable. One of her good friend came in the house just after we got the news. It was consoling her. Her sister came. My sister up the road came. I was then talking to the soldiers, and they asked, "Is there anything that we can do?" And I said, "No, there's really nothing else you can do." So they went outside, and I went out with them, and I shook their hand and I hugged them, and I said, "I wouldn't want your job for anything in the world." Then they left. I got an email from them shortly after they left, and they said, "We went down the road and we had to pull over," and they cried. Not only was it difficult for us, but it was difficult for those two men who came to our house that day. And then from that, family, friends came from all over to console us and share that they're sorry for our loss. And I said that evening and the next day and the next day, and I still say it today.
Hello, everyone. This portion of the show is being brought to you by High Mountain Seasonings. With the fall hunting season starting, one of my favorite ways to use my game meat is making jerky. And as long as I've been making jerky, I've found that the kits from High Mountain Seasoning are the easiest, best tasting, and complete sets on the market today. With 7 different flavors to choose from, the jerky kits from High Mountain Seasoning are your go-to choice for game meat jerky. And you can find out more at highmtnjerky.com.
After those two soldiers left, they went down the road and pulled over. They said we had to pull over, and they cried. And they said that shortly after that, I got an email from one of them and shared this with me, that it was difficult for them even though it was difficult for us, it was difficult for those two soldiers as well. So my heart goes out to them, and that's something they have to do, but they don't want to do. And it's one of their brothers in arms that was killed. So again, one of the things I kept saying repeatedly is God doesn't make mistakes. And I still say that today. Even though we go through things that are difficult, God never said that life would be easy, but he
Right.
promised he'd never give us too much, more than we could handle. And if we trust him, he will guide us. So from that day that we received that Joel was killed, we had the liaison. His liaison came the next day and told us more details. We didn't have all the details what happened, but he said, this is the procedure. We're waiting to see when his body is going to come home. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, just didn't know. And finally, one of the days he came, it was he said his body will be home in 2 days. So it had been about a week and a half since he was killed. His body came home, and we went down to the airport. There was a civilian plane. There was also another soldier that had been killed in that plane from another state. Joel's cousin Jeremy, who was in the military also at that time, escorted his body from Dover Air Force Base. So some of my family's waiting on the tarmac, were shoulder to shoulder. The door was open in the plane, and the soldiers were underneath, standing at attention. And when they rolled my son's casket, so it was visible with the American flag on it, it really hit home even more so that was his body. He's not coming back home the way he left. And they loaded him in the casket, drove him to Lincoln, which is the town next to ours, where we did view his body. We were able to view his body that day. And I'll never forget, my son Luke was the oldest, my daughter Joy is the middle, and Joel was the youngest. And Dee, we all went in where his body was, and my daughter said, I don't know if I can do this. And I kind of held her up, and I said, you can do this, but don't feel you have to if you can't. And anyway, she did, and we stood before the casket and viewed his body, something I'll never forget. Then the rest of the family came and viewed his body as well. So July 3rd was the day of his funeral. The town at that time is 850 people. Now we're about a little under 1,000, not much bigger. There were 11 or 1,200 people at his funeral at the local academy gymnasium. A lot of folks from all over the country and all over Maine came to see the funeral, and us that said things about Joel. Some of his fellow soldiers came. There were 4 of them. One was his first sergeant from his first tour, because Joel was killed on his second tour, and he spoke. I spoke at the funeral, and I'll never forget, I talked about my son being in combat and looking down in the sand, and then he looked down again, and he was no longer walking on the sand and in the desert, and he was walking on the streets of gold. And I talked about the transition from this earth to heaven that day, and my son Luke also spoke. So from that, they took he was in the hearse, put him back in the hearse, took him down to the local cemetery, and that's where they had the graveside service. And me, my son, and some of the soldiers and my family buried him, literally. Then we got invited to go to Fort Hood, Texas, which was July 19th. There was a memorial of 07. So we flew down and stayed with a retired lieutenant colonel and his wife, Mark Laguerre and Ann Laguerre, super Christian folks that my son used to go over there after church, singles group, and hang out. So they were good friends with them. And anyway, after we arrived the next day, some of his Army buddies came and picked us up from the home, took us to Fort Hood, Texas, to the chapel. And I'll never forget, they seated us on the left side, halfway up the aisle. And when we sat down, we counted the soldiers that were killed that month, and there were 19, including my son. So we're in this chapel with 18 other families that had just lost a soldier within 2 months. So after, it was a beautiful memorial, as good as it could get, I guess. And I realized that day that I wasn't alone. So that in itself was a comfort. There were others grieving, and we could lean on each other's shoulder and talk about our boys and what they did in their life and served our country. Then from there, they had a reception. We met some officers, some of the other family members. There were 3 other soldiers killed with my son. So we met some of their family members and also an Iraqi interpreter. Obviously, their family wasn't there. And then after that, we went back to the house. They had a catered supper for us. Then we all went to bed, got up the next morning. And this is where God called me. Went in the living room. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. Mark Legale, Lieutenant Colonel retired, was sitting on the couch reading the newspaper, and I sat across from him. And we talked about the war and what had happened. And that's when tears flowed down my cheeks, is where God called me that day to help Gold Star families, veterans, and active military. So that's where House in the Woods started, was from God calling me. And he put a passion in my heart that I've never had like that before. And I still have it, and I always will. He said, I want you to serve and these men and women that have given so much, and Gold Star families like ours. So that was the beginning of House in the Woods. And from that, we tried to figure out how we would become a nonprofit. We knew nothing about nonprofit work, had never been involved, right? So we called anybody and everybody, legions, VFW, some of our local politicians that we knew. And anyway, that was 2007. We hired a lawyer. We got rejected twice from the IRS because they said we didn't fit the criteria. And so I took it upon myself to call the IRS because the lawyer wasn't getting it done. And so she said, well, you don't fit the criteria. And I said, what do you mean? I said, my son was killed. And she said, well, you don't fit it. So fine, hung up. Well, it wasn't fine with me. But anyway, we hung up, come back to my lawyer, we did. And she said, I don't want you calling the IRS again. I didn't pay any attention to her. And I called again and then again. And finally I said, well, what do you want? She's in California, we're in Maine. And I think she got frustrated with me because I was persistent. And I said, I'm going to do this with or without your permission. God called me to do this. It doesn't matter. So finally, she transferred me to her boss and left a message. He wasn't in. 2 weeks later, I was coming home from work and I got a phone call. It was her boss. And he said, I know the situation. He says, I'm a 20+ year veteran. I'm going to help you. And I even remember there were 6 questions that needed to be corrected. He helped me do those 6 questions. Within 3 or 4 weeks, we had the 501c3 nonprofit letter from the IRS. And then we could start taking funding. And we had our first retreat, fishing retreat, that would have been June of 2010. And from there, we started adding trips, bear hunts, turkey hunts, deer, moose. And
let me ask you a question, if I may, Paul. So when you say that you were down there in Texas and you felt God call you to this mission, was it, I want you to create a retreat place for families? Was it that clear? Or was it, I want you to do something and you had the idea of the retreat place? The reason I ask it this way is because a lot of my listeners could potentially be thinking, well, what does he mean when he says, I had this call from God to do something? How clear it, because a lot of us, when we say God called us to do something, a lot of people get that something, but they don't know what it is that God's calling them to do. It's like when I felt called into the ministry, I didn't know what area of ministry it was to start with. I found that out later. Right. So just try to help the listener to understand that if they are feeling something in themselves that God may be leading to, how do you discern what it is that God wants you to do?
But in my case, I wanted to do something in my son's memory. I wanted to help his brothers and sisters in arms. I knew that, and Ghost Star families. So from that, my son loved to hunt. He loved to fish. He loved to canoe, kayak, cookouts, anything outdoors, hiking, all of this. I knew that's what I was going to do with these men and women. I knew that. I did not know where we were going to do this as far as where we were going to build. I had in my head, we're going to build a cabin or something somewhere. I don't know if it's another town, another area. I knew it was going to be in Maine, but I did not know. And then finally, so I said, well, we're going to start looking for a camp somewhere that we can rent. So
Okay.
we went to different places and we talked to different folks, and it was out of our price range. We didn't have anything really. We started with nothing, a shoestring, as I call it.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of money in our budget, but not enough. We couldn't even pay $800 a week to rent a cabin. That's how poor we were.
Right.
So, but what happened was we have a little local newspaper in Lincoln, the next town. We're in the town of Lee. And some folks stopped by the house. They were from Massachusetts with another couple. And they had a camp on Upper Sislodopsis, which is about 8 to 10 miles from our house. And they said, we see this article about you in the Lincoln News. How do you get veterans to come to hunt and fish? And I said, well, we're just starting. It's a process. They said, we have a camp and we've been wanting to have vets use it for 2 years and we can't get anybody. We had brochures out and they had nobody. So they said, why don't you come into our camp and look it over? I said, we're looking for a place. So we followed them in. We looked it all over, and I think it slept around 12 people. And I said, this is perfect. And he said, you know what? Here's the key. Use it whenever you want. It will cost you nothing. Not only that, but they offered to cook for us for 6 years, him and his wife. We would, at no cost. I tried paying them. They wouldn't take a nickel. We would go to town, pick the groceries up, bring it back to the camp before an event, a hunt. We call them retreats. And I never had to worry. They took care of all the food, 3 square meals a day, everything. And they did this for 6 years.
Wow.
And then one day I literally woke up one morning. I told Dee, I said, we're ready to build our own place. We didn't have much money. But I knew. So we donated 4 acres right here where we're located to put a building on.
So why would you build a place if you had a place for free that you can use?
Well, it was because sometimes we started doing hunts and retreats other places. So it kind of conflicted. Sometimes you never knew if their camp was available, but when we had a moose hunt or a deer hunt, we never knew if it was going to be available to us. We did have other camps, and it was kind of a difficult thing, kind of like having your own, not having your own car, and you're dependent on your buddies to give you a ride to town.
Got it.
You can jump in your own vehicle.
So there were other people using this facility as well.
That one, not so much their family, but that one, not so much. It was mostly for the bear hunt, but we had other places like the turkey hunt, moose hunt that we would have to call and try to reserve a place, but they weren't always available.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure we had a place, no matter what we were doing, that we could just say, okay, these are the dates, you can come. There's no question.
Right.
Somebody's not going to say, hey, sorry, you can't come in because
own it. Yeah.
my family's coming in, that type of thing.
Right.
You know?
Right. Okay.
So
that makes sense. Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
when you own it, you control the use of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, along with that, there's more cost, right? You can raise more money.
Yeah.
So, but it's okay. So anyway, I cut the wood off it. I used to be a logger. I used to have my own machines, chainsaw, skidders, and everything. Another guy, he had a machine. So I cut and he twitched it out. And we had to have it dynamited because it was all ledge. And the guy gave us a good discount. I think we had 13,000 in our account, and it cost 11,000 to dynamite it. and it would have cost 18,000. He says, I'll give you a discount. So then we had another company come in and remove everything. There was a ton of it. I mean, more than a ton. I mean, there were dump truck after dump truck after dump truck.
All right.
And
All right. Hold on a second. Because I'm not from Maine. I've been to Maine. I'm not from. All right.
okay.
So for the other people that are not from Maine and don't understand the topography, if you're dynamiting all these boulders and this granite and stuff out of the way,
Mhm.
ledge. Describe that. What does that mean? So it was like this.
Ledge is solid. You can't dig it out because here we have a foundation, and you cannot dig a foundation. You can if there's no ledge, but there's ledge. So in order to build here, we had to remove that ledge to dig down.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'd have had a building that was way too tall, which we
Okay.
didn't want.
Okay.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
So
basically, because it's so hard, rocky,
yes.
bouldery, in order to put in a proper foundation, you had to use explosives to remove this stuff in order to dig with it. Okay.
Right.
All right. I got it now.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, if we'd have had other properties somewhere, it may not have been, but where we donated, we had to. That's what we had to do.
Okay.
So that was done. It was another company. They did it. I think the value was like 60,000. They donated the removal of that. So that was a blessing. So, and then somebody came by and one day referred from another vet that we were going to build a place and they wanted to get involved. So they put money up for us to help get started and build the building. Well, in the meantime, the couple that we were staying at the camp in Upper Sodopsis Lake, I did not know this at the beginning stages. He found out he had a brain tumor and he died about a year and a half later. I did not know this, right? When God called me to do this, God knew, if that makes sense. That's why when I woke up, I said, we're ready to build. And we got started pretty quickly. For some reason, something told me you got to build your own place because he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And just tragic to lose somebody. Is such a super nice guy, him and his wife. So as it worked out, God knew. And so we started the whole thing. And so now this building that we have is like 80 by 90. We have 28 beds. We have 18 beds on the main floor just for the veterans. So we have 3 beds in each room. They have their own private bathroom. The whole building is ADA. And it's all paid for. We got a call about 2.5 years ago, and we owed almost 1.5 million on the building, and it was taken care of.
Wow.
So from a resource that I know who it is, our board knows who it is, but he wanted it left anonymous apart from us knowing. Mm-hmm. So that's a miracle.
It is. It's a what's what I'm looking for? A great example of how when God knows what you need, he provides a way.
Right.
As long as we're doing it for the right reason, right?
Exactly.
And so God provided a way.
Yeah. And I've got to say, along this journey, especially at the beginning, well, even now, but I had a shirt with my son's picture on it, Sergeant Joel House, in my Bible beside it. And every morning I'd get up and I'd pray by that shirt and ask God for guidance and help and to get through this. What do I do? That kind of thing, and read my Bible. So I'd pray, read my Bible, put my boots on, and go about my business. That was my daily routine. Still my daily routine. Hasn't changed. And for folks that are listening, is just trust God. If you read his scripture, he's going to guide you. But you got to ask him and be persistent. If it's a mission that you know God has called you, don't quit. We had some challenges, and I'll share another challenge. We were probably 4 or 5 years ago, probably 6 years ago, just before Christmas, we had to come up with $4,600 for a down payment on our insurance. We didn't have that money. We had about $2,500 in our account. And we only had about 2 weeks, so we're going to have to close. And I told Dee and others, I said, it's up to God. I said, we've done everything in our power. We got a phone call within that week, and a guy said, I'd usually give this money out in June, and this was before Christmas. Do you mind if I send you a check? And it was like for $11,000. We got another check within another week from a foundation in New Hampshire. And on the check, it had names, but no contact information, no phone number, no email. That was for $12,000. Then we had another gentleman stop by with a check for $10,000. That happened 2 years in a row before Christmas that we didn't have enough money to pay our insurance. And God provided at the last minute. And I think it was a test of faith to see how serious we were. And I told everyone, I said, well, if it closes, it closes. But you know what? I'm going to put wall tents up. I'm still going to carry through the mission. And God provided. And I never give up, and I never lost faith. And it's made my faith stronger. And today, I don't worry about finances. We work hard. We network. Angie works hard. I do, and others. And we network.
It's Angie's job to worry about the money, right, Angie?
Right.
Yeah. So,
excuse me, Paul. Angie, can you move over towards Paul a little bit? Because all I can see is an arm.
Oh, I was trying to stay out of the picture. I'm quite honestly known as the talker of the two of us. So when he's talking, I try to stay out of the way.
This is a treat.
I know
you see in history.
No. People watch on YouTube and wonder whose arm is that? Whose arm is that? Okay.
So, yeah, it's just we've seen so many miracles. We'll get in a little bit, or whatever you have for questions about the soldiers when they come here.
Well, I do have some questions. This is a good time for us to take a little bit of a pause in order to let some of the people that support my show to have a chance to put their to advertise for them. So we're going to take just a minute pause for that. We're fortunate here at Christian Outdoors to have quality companies supporting our mission, and Mueller Optics is a perfect example of this. Since 2007, Mueller Optics has had one mission: to bring the passion of hunting and shooting to everyone. Mueller Optics' aim is to offer top-tier rifle scopes that won't break your budget, making quality optics more attainable for enthusiasts like us. Now, I started using Mueller Optics scopes last season. Not only was I impressed with the cost of these scopes, but the quality of the glass and the ease of operation was as good or better than other brands costing 3, 4, 5 times as much as the Mueller Optics scopes do. Whether you're building the rifle for the hunt of a lifetime, an ultimate whitetail setup, or trying to make your 22 perfect for small game hunting and plinking, Mueller Optics has a scope for you that will outperform any other scope in its price point. And to further help Christian Outdoors, if you use promo code COP for Christian Outdoor Podcast, COP35 at checkout, you will save 35% on your purchase. Just go to MuellerOptics.com to find out more. All right, so I have some questions about what you do. You told us about how it came about, and it's an honor to your son Joel, and in memory, and for all the the Gold Star families, and for people who don't know, Gold Star families are families who have lost a child in service. Correct?
Or family member. It can be a family member.
Family member. Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying that. And active service members and also veterans. So that's what you do. But now that you have the place, tell us exactly what you do when people come. So you mentioned hunts, you mentioned bear hunts, and you mentioned, and I saw on your website, you just did a recent ATV ride and things like that. But if I'm a veteran and I come to House in the Woods, what am I to expect when I get there?
It's people with open arms. When veterans come into this building, I've had many people and folks that weren't veterans, because we have a lot of folks come through and see the building, is they say, I can feel God's love in this building. The atmosphere is positive, and for God's Holy Spirit resides here, and it's just one of those things I can't put in words.
Yeah.
Just from what people tell me, because we sincerely care about our men and women that have served and given so much.
I don't think I asked my question very well, so I'm going to try to re-ask it. And that is, if I show up today, all right, what is the program look like? Is it a structured, organized program? Am I on my own that just gives me a place to stay? How does it actually work?
Okay. Yeah. When they come in, we have good structure. When they first come in, of course, we greet them. We show them where their room is. Angie will have a nice detailed on a whiteboard, let's say when we're going to eat, for example, 5 o'clock in the evening, we're going to eat at breakfast at 7, eat at noon for lunch. We're going to go out target practicing Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, or Saturday afternoon. We're going to have a lobster feed that afternoon.
He's like, you had me at lobster.
Actually, for the bear hunt only, mostly, we have 200 lobsters donated for each of the 2 weeks that we do. And we have corn on the cob, we have all the fixins, and we'll have 50 or 60 folks that come in and greet the vets. And we have a preacher that comes in and he prays. He's also, I call him a butcher because I'm a meat processor. But so no, we have a good structure. We have a gentleman that after we have the lobster feed, we'll go down back, and he takes a piece of pine about 4 feet high and he carves a bear out with his chainsaw. We come back in the lodge. We'll have hot fudge sundaes, and then we'll have our safety talk. That's for the bear hunt. Others similar, we'll instruct them. We always have safety talks. This is where we're going to go. This is what we're going to do, what time we're going to leave. This is approximately what time we're going to get back. So it's and also some of the hunts, they have a leisure time in the morning. They can hang out after breakfast and go up to the pavilion. They can just sit down at the tables in the great room is where we eat. A lot of times our cooks, our guides will sit with them. If they want to walk, we have a nice trail down the road here past the lodge. They can go walking. There's a variety. We have guys that may take them fishing early in the morning if they want. So there's a variety of things. So we have that all available if they want to sign up for certain things. But we're very structured. But also there's times they can just go in their bedroom and take a nap if they're tired.
Right.
Go take a nap.
Because I've had I've had several veterans groups on the show that do. Yours is actually unique in the way in which you do it. So I want to ask this: are there times set aside for veterans to share with each other and to talk with each other? Do you have counselors on site in case somebody needs one, or is it more just a getaway place?
Yes and no. They counsel themselves. We don't have counselors. Personally, the VA has counselors that they have available to them. This is strictly an outdoor, we call them retreats, outdoor retreats. So whether it be hunting, fishing, recreation. So we have a fire pit outside. Usually that's where a lot of the vets will sit around with chairs out there.
They start sharing stories with each other, and they just start helping each other in a natural, organic kind of way.
Because they're more. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, if I could interject also, many of our guides, our volunteer guides, are also veterans. So we hear a lot, and I'm not a veteran and Paul's not a veteran, but what we hear from a lot of the attendees is, right, some of the reasons they don't go to particular places is because they're familiar with the process, and it's not a knock on the VA because the VA has a lot of great tools. But they don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing their true feelings about some things with people. Maybe they are struggling emotionally or mentally or physically in some ways that they're not comfortable telling someone yet. But they might just share it with somebody who they're comfortable with, who's been where they've been. And although we don't have therapists on hand, although we don't have these resources physically here all the time, we have access to all of those things, and our guides and our entire staff knows all the connections. So it's very common that someone will say, hey, so-and-so is looking for a contact at the VA or such and such. We have them all. We share them regularly. So we have the tools in the toolbox.
Okay.
We just use them as we see fit.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is for the listener who may be thinking about coming, but they live in Oklahoma and they've never been to Maine. And if I go to Maine and I'm doing this, and I find by talking to other vets that, hey, I need to talk to somebody at home. Can we make those connections? And you just answered that for us. Okay.
Yeah, and absolutely. The connections that we have, whether they are, and Paul's son, Luke, actually is a therapist. So although he's not actively participating as a therapist, he's part of the House in the Woods family. So there's resources very close by, and the VA connections can work, and they've done it. They've done it a lot for us. Really good connections who have helped people from out of state. So plenty of resources available as they're needed.
So these veterans, when they come in, we've had vets come from over 40 states, probably close to 45 states. We've had over 2,000.
Okay.
We started in 2010, and it's free. They have to get here, purchase a license, the food, the lodging, and the trip is completely free. So we take care of everything else. And I have had two vets called this spring and said, I didn't tell you then, but if I did not come to your retreat, I was ready to, literally, I was going to kill myself. I've had them tell me right here in this building that I was going to kill myself. And you talk about something that gives you more drive to want to do more is that.
Right.
You save one life, it's worth it. So we've saved many lives through this, and God's hand is in it for sure.
Absolutely. So it sounds like a great program, and you do things year round. It's not just bear hunts. I know on your website you have moose hunts, and you also did this ATV ride. But if anybody wants to come and endure the mosquitoes of Maine in the summer, then you have things in the summer for them as well.
We do. We just we did a trip to we have some out of state, not many. We went to Oswego, New York last week, fishing most king salmon, browns, that kind of thing for it's a 4-day trip. We do striper fishing in the Kennebec River in Maine. That's an overnight trip. We have folks that take guys fly fishing. We had that not too long ago up in northern Maine, some native trout. So yeah, we do other things. We have also coffee with vets every third Wednesday of the month from 7 to 11 a.m. We have coffee, 2 tables full of goodies, and they just come and socialize. We'll have anywhere from 20 to 40 to 50 vets come here and just hang out.
Yeah.
So we're adding a week-long Allagash River trip this year. So we're always I mean, there's a lot of fishing opportunities in the summer. So you'll find that we're continually adding more of that in the summer. In the summer, particularly when people are traveling around, like right now, we just kicked off. Thank God the snow is gone. We just kicked off Festival of Trees, which will be the entire month of July, and partially the reason we do that, and like anything we do, it's multifaceted. Obviously, we're a nonprofit. Obviously, we're always raising money. But this is a great time for people who are traveling around and are like, for your listeners, sometimes we hear from vets that'll say, I'm already a little nervous. I may be battling a little bit of, PTSD. I've got some anxiety. I don't know if I'm ready to sign up to stay for a week at a place that I don't know these people. I don't know what their situation is like. So we have a lot of summer activities going on that are open to the community, which includes obviously veterans and their families, but it's also an underlying theme that, hey, the doors are open. Come and just step inside, see how you feel, meet us, see what the environment's like. And then that's kind of that, step to getting involved with other things, whether it means just volunteering, because some vets are like, hey, I just want to be part of it, which is such a huge thing that people don't understand. As a volunteer, you can be a big part of it too. So there's a lot of opportunities just to get introduced to what we do here. And I think it's a good opportunity to say, recently we had a vet come for another reason. It was for a business reason. And he came in and we gave him a tour, and Paul gave him a challenge coin. And he left, and I was looking out the window that we're looking out right now, and I saw him stop right in front of the window, and he stopped and he was looking at the coin, and he just stood there for a couple minutes. And I said to Paul, he stood there for a few minutes. And when he called the next day, he had said something to Paul like I was changed. I was changed after just being in the building. So that whole, feeling God's love, it's real, it's palpable every day. And so just being here, not even just on retreat, it's just being here, being with people. I think it's the energy, it's God, it's Joel, it's everything. There's a presence here, and it's definitely palpable by a lot of people.
So
it's okay if, excuse me, popping right. So it's okay if you're in the area and maybe you're on vacation up there and you're in the area. And I don't even know where Lee, Maine is on the map of Maine.
we're about 40 minutes from Canada and New Brunswick.
Okay. You're way up there. Yeah.
Central. Yeah.
Yeah.
If for some reason you find yourself way on the east side of the country. Yes.
Yeah.
And Maine is a very beautiful state. Very beautiful state. Just a long way from everywhere.
Yeah.
It is.
Just a long way from everywhere.
Just ask Amazon, eh?
Yeah. Because I'm in South Carolina.
They're like, maybe in a week and a half we'll get you your stuff. Yeah.
I totally lost what I was going to ask.
Sorry.
I remember now. So if you're in the area, you can just stop by for the day, and as long as you're not interrupting something in process, then you can at least just have a day visit there and get a feel of what it's about, just in case you want to. But I also want to say, because you say in your thing that it's for active military also, not just for vets. It's, you may still be serving, and you're looking for a place where you can be with other active vets and or veterans, where you can spend some time. Because my oldest son is in the Army, and he's down at Fort Benning in Georgia right now. But so it's don't think you have to be retired or a former service person in order to use this. You can do it while you're still active as well.
Any veteran. We've had Korean War veterans, Vietnam, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan. We had a World War II tribute year ago in May here. We had 6 World War II vets. The youngest was 100, the oldest was 104. And so, it's just amazing. What a privilege to sit and chat with them.
Absolutely.
So along that same line, there's 2 things that set us, 3 maybe, that set us just a little bit apart from some of the other organizations. Like you mentioned, like having the lodge, obviously, that's a little bit different. For people who are listening, sometimes organizations, nonprofits will raise funds, they'll go out and they'll hire guides, and that's how they'll handle their retreats. Whereas we have the lodge. The second thing is, some of the organizations are I don't want to use the word restricted, but they're specifically serving a particular era, maybe only post 9/11, or it's only Vietnam veterans, or whatever it is. Ours is all eras, all branches, all states, active duty, veterans, retired, Gold Star families, everyone from everywhere. You do not have to be disabled. But like Paul mentioned, we are fully ADA accessible. So we do everything that we can in our power to make sure that we accommodate everybody who wants to come. And if for some reason there are extenuating circumstances that they have specific needs, we have other organizations that we know that will specifically be able to handle those things. And the third thing that sets us apart most specifically is that we are no drugs, no alcohol. So there are, and we could get to this later, but there's been many veterans who have said, one in particular, he was 20 days sober for the sturgeon spearing we were talking about briefly. The first year we did the sturgeon spearing in Wisconsin, in the beginning, sometimes you think, oh, why aren't things working out the way that we want them to work out? And in this particular case, we know many, many times God has his hand in it. We had a last minute cancellation. Tickets or tags for sturgeon spearing have to be purchased the year before. And we're like, we have this opening. We really want to fill it. One of our volunteers runs into this young veteran who had a young family, who was going through some troubles, and he was just 20 days sober. And so this person said, well, you could come sturgeon spearing with us. And he's like, well, I'm trying to get sober. So I don't want to, you're spearing in Wisconsin. There's typically drinking involved and not with us. And so the guy was like, oh my gosh, what a blessing. So he joins us and we hadn't even started the retreat. We were on just like the dinner and being together with no alcohol, whatnot. And I jokingly say he hugged Paul like 500 times, but he probably hugged him 50 times and eventually told him and told the rest of us, said, this was my plan. I was going to go sturgeon spearing and I was going to take my life next week. Like there was no question this was going to happen. He had a young baby at home, a young wife, and just said, I just didn't have anybody who I could lean on as I was going through my troubles, and found this place. Not only did he find a place to go sturgeon spearing without alcohol, but he made all these veteran friends. He made all these friends through the guides. And I can attest to the fact that was 5 years ago? 5 years ago. He has talked to some of those guides every single day since. He is still sober. He had another child. He went back to school and he is counseling other veterans who are getting sober. So, so when we talk about the numbers, I mean, this is the testimony right here is like, he says, I always say we should not use a number anymore because we've hosted 2,000 veterans on retreat, but what is that impact? That number really is not a true testament to the numbers, because if that gentleman wasn't here, how many more lives did he save along the way? How many more lives did he impact? So I always say it could be millions. We don't know.
Yeah.
But God had to cancel one person so that he could connect with us, and he's still connected with us. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about House in the Woods, the other thing that makes us different is we're a family. We don't just do it for the numbers. It's not about the numbers. It's like we could have one person show up and we're like, we're going to give them the same experience as if we had 20 people here. So it's,
You don't just do a retreat and they go home, right?
No.
You don't just do a retreat. Come in, have a good time, go home. Next group's in, go home. And it's not a revolving door. It's more of a personal contact with these people for a longer time. It is,
even though we're always wanting to invite more new people. That's the goal, is like, if you've been here before on retreat, come back as a volunteer. You get probably more out of the experience because you get to connect with more people. Right. So yeah, we stay in touch. We all stay together and it's great.
So our kitchen staff, volunteers, they have a help yourself shelf. Like if they're hungry in the middle of the night, they have a shelf that says do not touch, and they have a shelf help yourself. So if they're hungry in the middle of the night and they want to come down, we always have soda and water and coolers. And so that it is, like she said, family. You may see some guys laying in recliners laid back, taking a nap. It's very family, very relaxed. And I don't know how, I've had vets come and say, this is the first time I've slept for 8 hours in a year. Yeah. They just feel relaxed, like they feel safe, they feel relaxed. And I attribute that to God's Holy Spirit. He is something, it's just, you can't put it in words. You really can't.
Yeah. And I think a lot of believers and even those non-believers who have been in the presence of that have to acknowledge it, that there's something far greater than us working here, that we're just tools that God is using to do something great. For people who may not have experienced it, it's when the presence of God is there, it's undeniable. You may not, if you're a non-believer and you're experiencing it, you don't know really what it is. But if you're a believer, like, wow, what is going on here? This is truly the presence of God is in this place. And that if we are obedient to that and recognize it, then he can do great things with us if we just get out of his way. Right.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And, wow, this has been a great show. So let me, because we're getting close to our time here, guys. So let me ask just one final question. If a listener wants to participate in House in the Woods, your website is houseinthewoods.org, right?
Yes.
And would they just go there and sign up, or how does this, or if somebody wants to donate, if somebody wants to volunteer, if somebody tell us how to do that, and also how to find you on any social media or anything else?
Yes, good question. So I would highly recommend first stop would be houseinthewoods.org. We keep that updated regularly. So you're going to see activities that are happening both for the community, for veterans, for military families. You're also going to find a link up in the right-hand corner. There's just a button. You're going to press that. It says apply for a retreat. You're just going to get basic information, who you are, where are you from, what's your military experience or connection, and what are you interested in? We've narrowed it down to hunting, fishing, recreational, and that infamous sturgeon spearing because it's a unique experience and not everybody wants to go to the 20 below zero. So, but the good news is once you get in the shanty, it's like 80 degrees.
You didn't tell me that was that was ice fishing in wintertime. No, those Southern boys don't do that. I don't do not understand ice fishing people. But anyway,
Yeah.
So that's going to be where you put your information in there. Now, once you apply one time, you don't have to apply for a bunch of other things. Put your name on there one time. Paul House is the one that does the calling for the retreat interest. So we do that on an annual basis, typically, unless we have any last minute cancellations. Rest assured, if you put yourself down for one thing and you're like, I hope maybe I get a hunting opportunity, Paul's going to call. He's going to call, or we're going to email and say we're getting geared up to take people for the next year. And you just stay on the list. So put your information in there, even if you're not available right now. So we were talking about the active duty folks. Even if you don't think you're available right now, get your name in there because we do also try to invite based on when they applied. If somebody applied a couple of years ago and we're still trying to get them in, we're going to go back a little ways. So get in now and just get your name on the list. And if we call and you're not available, then you're just going to stay on the list anyway. As far as other ways to get involved, volunteers, there's a link on there for volunteers. Any phone number, any email you find on there, I manage pretty much all of those. Reach out with any questions you have. All the phone numbers, all the emails, Facebook, Instagram, the Twitter, YouTube, we're everywhere. If you drop us a message anywhere, we will get back to you. And don't be afraid to ask any questions that you might have. If you're nervous about something or you might have a disability or you may need to have someone travel with you, that's something that happens sometimes is people have caregivers. We accommodate that as best as we can as well. We had a couple years ago, we had two quadriplegics here for a bear hunt. So we do everything that we can to make it possible. We have track chairs and all that business. So we just stay in touch, hop online, follow us on Facebook. And even if you're not ready to commit to a retreat, just start following along and seeing what's going on.
Right. That's awesome. Guys, I want to thank you for doing this. For answering God's call. I think it goes without saying that our heart goes out to you, Paul, and Dee, and your wife, Dee, for your loss. And I know having a son in the military, I know that constant fear is there.
Yeah.
It's just there. And no one wants to see that van pull up in the yard, but it's happened way too many times for too many people. But you've taken something that has destroyed a lot of families and has made something that has saved a lot of families. Yeah. And my hat's off to you for that. And but for hearing God's call and for answering it and for continuing to trust him and to believe in him and to see how he continues to bless our obedience and our willingness just to follow him. I mean, what did Isaiah say? Here am I, send me. Yeah. Right. And so thank you for that. And for all the servicemen and women, which I'll ask you that later. But thank you for joining me here on Christian Outdoors. I really appreciate it. It's been a great show. Thank you for sharing. And we will put all these links in the show notes. So anybody who wants to, who maybe forgot where it is, they can go to the show notes, click on the link and go straight to you. Paul and Angie, thank you for joining us here from House in the Woods.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.